Wow. Okay, we're in chapter 4. And this is Leah, right? Yeah, Leah Brinstein. There's a saying, that if you throw a stick up in the air, it comes down on the heavy end. With regard to what is that saying? With regard to Hagar. Hagar was a princess in Egypt. She connected herself with Abraham and Sarah when they were in Egypt, when she saw the miracles were taking place. She said, better to be a servant in their household than a princess in the palace of my father. And she became Sarah's servant. When Sarah couldn't have children, she gave Hagar to her husband as like a mistress. It's called a concubine in the Torah terms. They weren't properly married. And she said, maybe the fact that it will bother me will cause me to do a deeper tshuva, I'll be able to have a child. That was Hagar. Then Hagar did have a child. And it went to her head. She began to feel that she was more righteous than Sarah. And here Sarah hadn't been blessed with a child, and she had. And the child was born, and that was Yishmael, father of the Arabs. And he was a nasty kid. He tried to kill Yitzchak. He argued with Yitzchak about who was Avram's firstborn son, and tried to kill him. And so Sarah said, get rid of the child. And they did. They got rid of her. And she returned to the ways of her father, to his idolatrous ways. So Rashi says there, the sages teach us that if you throw a stick in the air, it comes back on the heavy end. And in terms of our Jewish lives, we see over and over again that people grow up, and because of circumstances, they leave Yiddishkeit. Circumstances usually mean they're deprived of a Jewish education. They don't know what to do. Good morning, Sarah Mora. And they don't know they don't know how to be Jewish. And so they go away from being Jewish, and the children come back. See this over and over again. Jews from Ukraine, traditionally, as my experience, I've met many Jews came to America who started off in Ukraine, had been many generations in Ukraine. And they're very warm-hearted, very warm to Yiddishkeit, as opposed to the Jews from Lithuania, Riga and Lita, very cold, very different. Their outlook, they consider themselves intellectual. They're very cold. Whereas Jews from Ukraine, would you like to put tefillin? Yeah, sure. Happy, start reminiscing about their Babi and their Zaidi. When Avram, I know you snuck in so quietly. When Avram went down to Egypt, he was nervous about Sarah, that the Egyptians would not be used to seeing such a beautiful person. It says he realized that his wife Sarah was very beautiful. And they asked, how come he never realized she was beautiful before? There are different explanations of what that means. One is that she was very, very modest. He didn't notice. Another one is that he and Sarah lived on a higher level. They didn't pay attention to such physical things. But he was nervous that the Egyptians would see how beautiful she was, and they would kill him. They would kill him because they didn't want to rape a married woman. So they would kill him so she wouldn't be married anymore, and then they could do what they want. And what happened? So he put her in a box. He hid her in a big suitcase, a big trunk. But they had immigration and customs to get into Egypt. And they said, "What have you got in that box?" He says, "Personal belongings." They said, "Open the box." They opened the box. There was Sarah. Whoa, she was gorgeous. So they took her to Pharaoh. It's a woman this is fit for a king. They took her to Pharaoh. And the whole story, and so it's like a mini version of what happened to their ancestors when the Jews were slaves and we went down to Egypt. So Pharaoh and his household were punished. There's an angel came to protect Sarah, and she said, "This one, and this one, and this one." And wherever she said, they got afflicted with a terrible, painful disease. Until Hashem appeared to Pharaoh in a dream and told him, the reason this is happening is because you've taken a man's wife, you've kidnapped a man's wife. You better release her, or there'll be more to come, worse to come. He said, "Don't worry, because he's a prophet, and he will pray for you that you should be healed." And so that's what happened. And then Pharaoh sent him away because he knew that his people were not trustworthy. So from this, we learn a lot of different lessons. One of them is throw a stick in the air, comes down on the heavy end. She came from idolatrous background. When she was free to do so, she returned to her idolatry. And Sophia came in. Hello. The other thing we learn is that very often we take steps to prevent some untoward event from happening, and the steps that we take cause it to happen, ironically. And a more proper path is to have trust in Hashem. For instance, we just read the story of Yosef. Yosef was in prison, and the butler and the baker both had dreams, which Yosef interpreted. In 3 days, it's going to be Rosh Hashanah, it's going to be Pharaoh's birthday, and he's going to take you out of here. And he says to the butler, "Before I return to your position, just remember me to Pharaoh. Let him know that I'm here." Because he'd been there for 12 years already. For 10 years, he'd been in there. He'd been in jail. And then the butler forgot. Jesus said, "Don't forget me. But please don't forget that I'm here." And sure enough, he did forget. He tried everything to remember, but he wasn't able to remember. He tried all kinds of tricks to make him remember, and then in the end, he always forgot. Ever happened to you? You want to get something from the store, and you go and you get everything you're supposed to get, and you forget the one thing that you went for? So that's what happened with the butler. He kept on forgetting. And after 2 years, Hashem enabled him to remember. So because Yosef said, "Please remember me," so he could take me out of here because I don't deserve to be here. I didn't do anything wrong. So because he said that, he had to stay to another 2 years, because for somebody like Yosef, he should have just relied on Hashem. And we see over and over again this idea that what you try to prevent is what ends up happening. So Avram tried to prevent that the Egyptians would kidnap his wife. In the end, they kidnapped his wife. There's a friend of mine who he's a teacher in all the Torah, he's a Melamed. He makes a lot of jokes. He lived in LA as well. His name is Rabbi Ruddle. He makes a lot of jokes. Now today is the 10th of Tevis, right? The word Tevis is the same as the word for a box. A teva is a box. Noah's Ark is called a teva. So Avram put Sarah in the teva, in a box. When did that happen? What day? It happened today. How do we know? Because the day is called Asara, which means 10, right? Asara b'teva. Put Sarah in a box. Asara b'teva. That's a joke.
She told us this on Friday night.
What?
Mrs. Vettel told us this on Thursday.
She told you that joke?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he repeats his father's jokes.
Yeah.
He was the original Rabbi Ruddle, his father. So you heard it.
Yeah.
I'll have to be careful. Okay, Malcolm. Now I know you're here. I'll be very careful about Rabbi Ruddle's jokes.
Yeah.
You know what day the Jews left Egypt? That's one of his jokes too.
No.
March 4th.
Nice.
Okay. Back to learning.
We're learning jokes, so that's arguably good.
Well, it's a preparation. We'll learn that in chapter 7.
How to joke.
You start the lesson with a joke.
Oh, nice.
Okay, now we learned until now that love and fear, the commandments of the Torah are called the garments of the limbs of the king. 248 mitzvahs correspond to 248 limbs. This is the source of the positive mitzvahs, which we do because we love the king and we want to be connected to him. And the 365 negative commandments are mitzvahs that we do because we don't want to be separated from Hashem. Whenever we do a negative mitzvah, heaven forbid, it causes an iron curtain to separate us from Hashem. And the only way to pull down that iron curtain is to do tshuva. How do you do tshuva? You make a strong resolution. I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to do it again. And then they test you from heaven. They test you. They put you in the same situation and you don't do it. Like a person who says, I must go on a diet and go to a wedding, and they have all these pastries after the wedding, and you're on your diet, and you said before you went, I'm not going to have pastry anymore, and they put the pastries out and they look delicious, and you don't have them. That means you did tshuva. They give more graphic examples in the Talmud of situations that a person could be in, and he holds himself back and does not indulge his desires. In that situation, it's, he did tshuva. That's what it means to do tshuva. Now, we move on page 81 to a new topic. That the human being is made in the image of God. The image of God is the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah, positive mitzvahs and negative mitzvahs. Positive are things to do, negative are things not to do, to avoid being cut off from Hashem or to avoid polluting the system. All the negative commandments, some say, I don't like. I once was learning with a student who took on himself to eat kosher. His parents were very, very upset. And his father called the Chabad house and he was complaining. He was very, very angry. I said, what are you angry about? He says, because I can't go out to have a meal with my son. We can't go to a restaurant together. I said, why not? You live in New York. There are plenty of kosher restaurants in New York. He says, but I want to have lobster. Well, lobster is forbidden food. We can't have that because that's going to mess up our whole system. So the Torah tells us. So he saw that as an imposition, what they call in Israel today, forcing your religious attitudes on the public. Kafiyah dati, it's called in Hebrew. Kafiyah dati, forcing your principles, your religious principles, on everybody else. But the Torah isn't forcing its principles on everybody else. When the Torah tells us something is forbidden, this is like the skull and crossbones on the bottle of iodine. Don't go there. It's not good for you. This is very detrimental to your physical and spiritual health. Now, the 613 mitzvahs, we do them in thought, speech, what we think, what we say, what we do. These are called, bottom of page 81, we're continuing from there. These are called garments of the soul. Now, when the Neshama comes down into this world, it's like going shopping in Manhattan. You need to get a good set of garments. And the garments you're going to get are things that you do. Now, we've said many times that the garments you wear make a statement to the world, and the things that you do make a statement to the world. These are garments of the Torah. Modest garments, they make an impression, they make an impact in the world. Now, which is greater? Does your soul need the garments? Is your soul greater? Are you greater than your garments? You say, yeah, I'm the one who wears the garments. Garments don't wear me. Or do they? Maybe they do. Person who has garments doesn't want anybody to take them away from him. And you could say the soul comes down into this world in order to get garments. Just like you go to Manhattan at this time of year, they have sales, end of the season sales. And you go to get the garments because you need them, because you feel that you're missing something without them, and you are. So if that's the case, then maybe the garments are from a higher level than the soul itself. How could that be? Let's take a look. These garments that the soul desires, the soul comes down into this world because the soul in Gan Eden, in heaven, has revelations of godliness, very, very high revelations of godliness. What does it need to come down here for? It needs to come down here for the garments, because there's no garments on sale in Gan Eden. You can't get garments there. You have to come down here to light a Shabbos candle, which is a garment of the soul. So even though the mitzvahs are called garments of the nefesh, ruach, and the neshama, in kol zeh, nonetheless, turn the page 82, page 82. Nonetheless, we could say, gava godla, my losam indicates that the garments, the mitzvahs that we do, are much higher than the soul itself. And that's why the soul wants them, desperately wants them. So, they're infinitely higher than the soul. Al-Malis nefesh ruach and neshama. That's why they're much, much higher than the nefesh ruach and neshama. And that's why we find interesting behavior patterns by Jewish people. That when Jewish people are not religious, they tend to be very self-indulgent in terms of eating and garments and acquiring things, which is a displacement. It's a displaced desire because the soul is thirsting for God. It doesn't have mitzvahs. So it replaces that thirst with drinking and eating or acquiring things. But the more things you acquire, the more you want. It doesn't quench your thirst. The only thing that quenches your thirst is learning Torah or doing good deeds. And this is written in the Zohar. The Raisa, how do we know that these garments are very high? So the bottom line, the way it works out, is because these garments are Torah garments. And the Torah is connected with Hashem. And Hashem is higher even than your soul. Even though your soul is part of Hashem, but Hashem is infinite. Of a higher, if you have degrees of infinity, a higher degree of infinity, and the Torah is connected with Hashem. And next set of lines here on page 82, second Hebrew lines, page 82, it says in the Zohar, this is something to memorize, something you'll see it over and over and over again in Hasidic literature. Oiraisa is an Aramaic word for Torah, with the same root as the word hara'ah. Has two roots. One is hara'ah, which means instruction, hara'ah, instruction, and the other root is or, which means light. I
was going to say, don't throw that at me. That's when it's stumbling block.
Let's see if we can find one that works here. Okay. This word is oiraisa or oiraita. There's a store in Kingston Avenue called oiraita. The root is or, which means light, and hoira'a, which means instruction. And what does the word mean? Oiraisa means Torah. It's Aramaic for Torah. Oraisa, Torah, Oraisa. You can see the similarity in the language. Okay? So, Oraisa, Kadosh Baruch Hu, everybody knows that Kadosh Baruch Hu means Holy One, blessed be He. Oraisa, Kodshibrichu, Kulei Chad are all one thing. Chad is one, like Echad. So, Oraisa, Kodshibrichu, Kulei Chad, how do we know? Because it says in the Zohar. Got it? Second Hebrew lines, page 82. These are our gangbuster thoughts, which we live with, because Torah and the Holy One, blessed be He, are entirely one. Perush, which means Doiraisa, because what is the Torah? Torah is Chachma. Torah is the wisdom of Hashem. Chachma is wisdom. Torah is the wisdom of Hashem. Everything in the Torah is the wisdom of Hashem, and Torah is the will of God. It's what He wants the world to be, and what He wants us to do. That's called Ratzon. Okay? Ratzon. Ratzon is the will or the desire. And it's the wisdom. Who remembers the word for wisdom? Chachma. So Torah is the Ratzon and the Chachma of Hashem. Now Chachma is the highest of all of the 10 spheres. But why is it that a person becomes wise? What is before Chachma is Ratzon? A person with a strong, nothing can. Here's another saying, write this down in your books. Nothing stands before a strong Ratzon. There are two things that are greater than any other power. One is desire. A person wants something, he'll get it. He really, really wants something, he'll devote himself to this task of getting it, and nothing can stand in the way of a strong Ratzon. Therefore, your Ratzon can change the whole makeup of your intellectual powers. And a person who wants to become smart can become smart, no matter how limited he may be. When I was in college, my university days, there was a boy, I lived in a dormitory, and there was a boy, a very simple boy, very simple, simple-minded, nice, sweet boy, short kid. And he took upon himself the most difficult course in the whole university, which was history. Because all the other courses, you have to think a lot. History, you have to memorize and read tons of material, tons. Hours and hours and hours and hours of reading, more than any other course. And he took on himself to learn history. Well, the first year he worked very hard. He barely passed, barely. They did him a favor, they pushed him up to the second year. And again, he worked very, very hard. Oh, it was pleasant, he was a pleasant kid. He worked very hard. And he got a C minus. He went up from a D plus to a C minus. And the third year he kept on working and he got himself up to a C, a regular C. And the fourth year, he kept on plugging away and plugging away and plugging away. And he ended up graduating with a B minus or a C plus, a B minus. I saw from this, the person really wants, he can make himself smart. And eventually, he would get a position in the civil service or something like that. And he'd be very proficient in what he could do. Because Rotzain is even higher than Chachma. And in Hasidus, it explains the difference between Rotzain and Chachma is that Chachma is intellect. It's in your brains. That's the inspirational power in the brain. It's called Chachma, right? The power, we learned this in chapter 3, the power of something to come into existence. What turns on the light in your brain? That's Chachma. So Chachma is something you experience in your brain. That's why you don't experience it in your stomach and not in your legs. But Rotzain you experience anywhere in your whole body. You want to jump, you just jump. Because the Rotzain can be in your legs the same way it can be in any other part of your body. So Rotzain is called the crown. Rotzain is called the crown because you have a king, like has 10 aspects of the person. There's 10 spheres, 10 holy spheres. On what makes the king a king? How do we know that a king is a king? We have to look at him. You see, he wears a crown. The crown goes over the head, over the intellectual powers, over the chachma, over the bina. Is the crown on top. What's the word for crown? What did I do with my pen? Oh, here it is. What's the word for crown? Keser. So Keser means the crown. And according to Kabbalah, the crown is another term for the Rotzain. Because the Rotzain is higher than wisdom. Rotzain is everywhere, affects the whole being. Then you have inside and outside, superficial and internal. Everything has like a body and a soul. So even in Rotzain, we have superficial aspect of the Rotzain. That's like its outer form. And then you have the inner form. The inner form always remains what it is. I remember one time I was on a Shavuos, I went for a walk to one of the shuls to speak there, and I went with Rabbi Majeski. And I was learning a mimer, and it said there that Chachma never comes into Bina. I said, what does that mean? Of course, Chachma comes into Bina. It inspires Bina. So he said, no, only the external aspect of Chachma relates to Bina. And it becomes the internal aspect of Bina. And similarly, the external aspect of Bina becomes the internal aspect of Da'as and Midas. But the essence of Chachma remains where it is, and the essence of Bina remains where it is. It's only the superficial outer aspect that can communicate. So similarly, in any relationship, like a teacher-student relationship, a husband and wife relationship, first of all, there has to be a connection on the outer external level, which is why, like when you get married, before you go to the chuppah, the husband comes in and covers the face of the bride with a veil. A very external thing. We say about it in English, it's like breaking the ice in a relationship. It's something external, but it opens the way a little bit for a more intimate communication and unification. So the external aspect of Rotzai, of the Keser, is the will, Hashem's willpower, your desire to do something. When you take it upon yourself, I want to do this. I want to learn Hasidus. I want to do Torah and mitzvahs. I want to keep kosher. I want to keep Shabbos. I want to have a family. I want to have children. That's Ratzon. Why? what is the inner aspect of Ratzon? What's Panemius of Ratzon? Panemius Kesser. Panemius Kesser is the pleasure that you anticipate, this extraordinary feeling of called tainug, delight that you anticipate, that makes you want it. So they say, why does a person want something? You can't ask questions on why a person wants something. It's too high to analyze. But what's the driving power behind our desire for the things we desire? That's the kind of the delight we anticipate. So Ratzon is Ratzon, the will of God and the wisdom of God. Where are they to be found? In the Torah. And the Torah is one thing with the Eibishter. So when we do a mitzvah, the mitzvah is the Ratzon of Hashem. And the mitzvah also is the wisdom of Hashem. And these are the garments that the soul desires. Now let's say, what does it say on the inside? That Torah is the wisdom and the willpower of the Eibishter. And the Eibishter, in his essence, is entirely one. He translates as his glory and his essence. These are levels. These are levels in the infinite. Kavod means the glory of Hashem, and the Atzmai means the essence of Hashem. Well, Ratzon of Hashem is one thing with Hashem on all these levels. And now he brings down in the fourth Hebrew lines on page 82. We've had this before already in chapter 2 from the Rambam, who says that Hashem is the knowledge, Hashem is the knower, and Hashem is the thing that's known. So that Hashem knows the Torah. Hashem knows what the Torah is, and Hashem is the whole world with which we do the Torah, mitzvahs of the Torah. All these three, he says here, are distinct terms of human intellect, but as they relate to Hashem, they are all called godliness, which is not something the human being can understand. Because we can know something, we can know an idea. Then there's the idea, we know the idea, and there's a thing the idea is about. And Hashem is all of these three, and we are not. We're going to have to stop here. Have an easy fast. It's the shortest fast. It's the most serious of all the fasts. Nobody was killed. Nobody was hurt on this day. This is just the day that the enemy from Babel surrounded the city. Nebuchadnezzar came and surrounded the city of Jerusalem. And as the Rebbe points out, if the Jewish people had realized what was happening, and it was happening because, as to remind them, to strengthen their connection to Hashem, Nebuchadnezzar would have gone away. But as happened in Hanukkah, when they came with the elephants and nothing could stand in front of the elephants. You know, they tell the story about Hanukkah, about how Elazar was so brave and he went and he stabbed the elephant from underneath, and the king was on top of the elephant, but he wasn't really on the elephant. It was someone who looked like the king. It was disguised. But his Mesiras Nefesh inspired the troops and they kept on fighting. Well, that's all very nice story, but what actually happened isn't so. I mean, he did have Mesiras Nefesh, he did kill the elephant, but it didn't stop them. The elephants kept coming. They couldn't stop them. And the Assyrian Greeks marched all the way to Jerusalem. They surrounded the city, and the city would have fallen into their hands. What happened? A miracle. What was the miracle? That the leader of the Greek army at that time, his name was Lysias, he had a kingdom. And while the cat's away, the mice will play. There was a revolution at home. And he got a message: if you don't come home right away, you're not going to have a kingdom anymore. He turned around and he went home. The Jews were saved. And the same thing could have happened today. That if we had done tshuva, then the Babylonians would have gone away, and the Beis Mikdash wouldn't have been destroyed. So these days I remembered and we relived them. Today is a day when we can do tshuva. What does that mean? In simple terms, everybody should take 5 minutes and think about where you're holding. What are the things that you've done that you know there were right things to have done? Can we do them a little better? Is there anything that my teachers are asking me to do that I don't feel ready for yet? Maybe I could give it a try. Maybe I could, even in a limited way, take on something that I don't usually do until now. That's called tshuva. Today's the day.